The third day of February 2024, it's a very good day in rural Ireland, sunny outside but cold of course. Greencoat Renewables in free fall. Greencoat Renewables in free fall. Folks, I am not your financial advisor and cannot be held or take accountability for advising you on your finances. That has to be said. Also has to be said that I'm a lifelong campaigner against renewable energy because I say it doesn't work. That's another day's work as well. Now, about 4 months ago, I made a video in which I warned people who held Greencoat Renewable shares to consider their position. I compiled a dossier on the insolvency of Irish wind energy. I think I updated it about 2019 or thereabouts. I didn't go back there since. I examined the shares of about 40 Irish wind farm companies and about 2 in the UK, and I found they were all technically insolvent. I completed a course in business studies in 2003 with the Institute of Public Administration in Dublin, and I studied financial accounts, so I have a good idea about financial accounts, and I got an honour in the exam. So the thing about it is, anyway, I examined these and it showed that they were all technically insolvent. And I want to explain to you how that is. What if you take a wind farm costing 20 million, we just say 20 million, the lifetime of that wind farm is 20 years, and that's optimistic. The output degrades a good deal as it gets older. Now, I'll not go into the figures for that for the moment. It's something like about 1.5% or 2% per annum, roughly that amount. Now, so that wind farm should be written down in the accounts. I can't explain capital depreciation in accounts. This is how you write down the capital cost of an asset. It should be written down at 1 million per year over 20 years at the very best. If it were a tractor, for tax purposes on a farm, it would have to be written down over 7 years. My own opinion is they have a life of about 14 years, 15 years, and that's it. So it would be prudent to write them down over 15 years, let's say. Now that's straight line depreciation. Now there's another type of depreciation called reducing balance, and I won't have time to go into that here. Reducing balance is where you would probably take 1.3 million the first year of it, and then in the last year you'd probably only take maybe 0.7 million as the value of the asset goes down as they become more threadbare. Now remember, after these wind farms are redundant, when the planning permission is over or when they're no longer viable, they have to be dismantled, and that costs a lot of money. That costs a sight of money. I'm not including that in this. Who will carry that cost? Probably the farmer in the end of the day, if the company doesn't stay in power, stay in existence. Now, the point about it is, when you look at the profits they get, the income, the turnover, and the profit, we just have a look at what the typical situation is. The typical situation is for a 20 million wind farm, and this is optimistic, very optimistic. They get 2.5 million for remuneration for electricity sold and other subsidies. Okay, in reality it's less. I can't go over in individual cases. The expenses for running the wind farm of that, we'll say, this is an example, not actually true figures, is 1.25 million. Okay, so they get 2.5 million in income, turnover, and they have 1.25 for running it. That's for servicing them, checking them out, maintaining them, rent to farmers and all that sort of stuff. Now, the next thing is they have interest on the loan. If they have a loan, they have to pay the interest, and the interest has to be paid to the bank. And if wind farms ever go burst en masse, the banks will be the ones that will be in difficulty. The wind farms can walk off. That's the way it is. But anyway, the typical example here would be 1.25 million in interest on the loan. Now, wind farms love to have capital from shares. If you give them 100,000 in your capital for shares and buy shares, they don't ever have to pay you back. It's really at their pleasure. Whereas the bank loan has to be met every month or whatever. So you see the difference. If they don't pay the bank loan, they could be technically declared insolvent. If they don't pay the shareholder, they can do that, and there's not a thing you can do. So now we look at that then. We find that expenses, we'd say in this case is 1.25, and with I said there that the interest there would be 1.25. That'd mean they'd have nothing left at all. So to get over that issue, I made the interest payment at 1 million. So I've changed the above here a bit because I couldn't leave it with 0 down, or it wouldn't be a good example. So expenses 1.25, interest 1.1, interest 1 only. See it there now, interest 1 only. And that leaves 0.25 million, 250,000 left. And some wind farms have nothing left. Some have nothing at all. Some are down the other way. But some do have a little bit of residual money left over. And that money is what goes to pay shareholders, pay a dividend or whatever. By right, there should be cash on hand. That should be kept for a rainy day. So you get the point. There's a little left over. Usually something like 360,000 for a 20 million wind farm. Usually something like 600 for a bigger one, and etc. etc. Now the problem then with that is that 0.25 is not enough to actually pay off the capital cost. It's not enough to pay off the capital cost. Now, some of the capital cost will have been forwarded by the bank, and so the bank will be carrying the can, and so the bank loaned the money, and they're paying back the loan out of their remuneration to the bank, out of their interest payments. But I cannot find examples where the principal is paid. This, folks, is very, very important. It looks to me that in most cases the interest is paid and the capital isn't. Now, that's not that unusual. If you take out a mortgage on a house, the first few years most of what you pay will be interest, and then it'll taper off and you'll be paying the principal. So that has to be said. But in any event, there is always an inadequate amount to pay off the capital cost. And some of them pay off the capital cost can show that they can do it in 32 years. The best I got was 32 years, and the worst I got was 380 years. And an average is about 55 years to pay off the capital sum. So just to get it going now, they got their money in for the electricity and their subsidies. They paid their expenses, which are very high, big running on a wind farm. They paid the interest on the loan, and then they have supposedly to pay the capital cost. And then they pay the shareholders. Now, the point about it is, with nearly all of the wind farms, they're owned by utilities like the ESB, the National Toll Roads, SSE Electricity, and other big companies which are licensed by the state, and the state can give them a permission to raise the fees. So what happens is the parent company forgives the capital sum of the wind farm. In fact, in 2017, the ESB, the Electricity Supply Board of Ireland, forgave debt to Derrybrine Wind Farm in Galway to the tune of 10.1 million. And that's a pattern all over. So in order to pay for this, in order to forgive that debt, they have already paid out the capital cost to the subsidiary, which says 20 million. They paid out that capital cost. They never get it back. They load the money onto the bill instead. You get that point? Now, the thing about Greencoat Renewables is that it has no other income except wind farms. It doesn't have fossil fuel generator stations. It's not involved in toll roads. It doesn't have other money-making enterprises. So this begs the question, when they gave out money, we'll say 100 million, and they do all the accounts with the subsidiary does all the accounts and has nothing to give them back, they simply forgive it. How can they keep buying wind farms without ever getting recouped the capital cost? This is the big mystery. Their accounts show all kinds of derivatives and financial instruments, but you don't get adequate information to know what's happening. Now, of course, all of these utility companies are in cahoots with the Green government, and they'll do anything to try and get out of this. And one of the things that Greencoat is trying to attract share capital. If they can get share capital in, they can pay a dividend out of that, and they are paying a dividend of 6.5%, and they can pay a bit of the bank loan capital. So if you get your gratuity, we say you're a retired nurse, we say you get 68,000 of a gratuity, and you go along then and you you put that into a wind farm company, you then have to get it back, but it can't come back because it's used to pay off the capital cost, to pay off the bank loan. So you're essentially relieving the bank of that debt. And therefore, how can you ever get back your money? And why do they pay a dividend of 6.5? Well, inflation is about 5% at the moment. So if they didn't pay a dividend, they wouldn't get new capital. Now, the suspicion is, among many who have looked at this, and many accountants and people, is that this is what they're doing. They're getting in new capital over here from shareholders, and they're paying out a dividend to existing ones. And that paints a bright picture. Now, my advice is this, and I'm not your financial advisor, so a lot of information not in the accounts. But at a very minimal, either check the accounts yourself, go on company registration office in Dublin. For $2.50 you get the accounts of all the wind farms and check them out. If you're not competent, get an accountant to check them for you. Be well worth giving them 500 there to give you a good rundown on Greencoat Renewables all over. Do not confuse Greencoat Renewables Ireland, which is a euro price at a denomination 100-cent share, and Greencoat Renewables in the UK, which is a sterling share. It has a bigger nominal value than the Irish version. They trade at about 135. It's a bigger nominal value. Now, so that's what I'm saying to you folks. You need to look out. Richard Bruton was on the radio a year ago pleading with people who had a few pounds to stuff it into wind energy, and he called them community wind farms. How electricity would know it was from a community wind farm, I don't know. They all feed into the grid. I hope to do another video on how they actually work. So it's a case that, as I say, I'm not your financial advisor. If you took my advice the last time, you would be selling at 93. You'd be getting out. They rose to about 97 about 3 weeks ago. So you'd be saying, oh, look at that, I lost money now, I shouldn't have sold. Now they're down to 90. They're down to 90. I'll just write it here. So that's 90, right? They're 90 now. So if you kept them for a year, you'd be getting 6.7 of a dividend. That's 96.7. You're still down money, right? I think I've said enough on that on 12 minutes. Greencoat Renewables, the share is very low at the moment. And as I say, the value of shares can go up and down. I can't be accountable for this. But I think myself that anyone that's invested in wind farms is going to get a bloody nose very easily. If this goes the way I think, and I believe it's the green economy that's going to sink Europe and America. And don't forget, the electric cars are not going well either. If this goes wrong, it'll be the banks that'll be hit. And that could precipitate a serious economic crisis. Folks, enough said. I don't want to pontificate any more about it. If you want to go ahead and buy Greencoat shares, it's your money. Do it as you like. My advice is steer well clear and watch the crash take place. Bye bye. Good luck. Thank you.